Hello, we'll continue with the Merchant of Venice. Act 3, Scene 1. Enter Salenio and Saladino. Salenio says, How? Now, what news on the Rialto? The Rialto is the marketplace of Venice. So, Salenio asks Saladino what news there is among the merchants for trading in the marketplace. Saladino says, Why, yet it lives there unchecked that Antonio hath a ship of rich lading, wrapped on the narrow seas. The good winds, I think they call the place, a very dangerous flat and fatal, where the carcasses of many a tall ship lie buried, as they say, if my gossip report be an honest woman of her word. So Salarino tells Salenio that among the merchants there is news that is circulating unchecked, and that Antonio, the rich merchant, has a ship which is which was which was loaded with rich goods, and this ship has been wrecked on the narrow seas. Maybe it hit a rock, or maybe it ran aground on the shore, and the name of the place where this occurred was is called the Goodwins. So the Goodwins is a very dangerous flat. A flat is a shallow body of water. So ships need a lot of depth to sail. If they come near the shore, they will run aground, and it will be difficult, if not impossible, to get them back on the sea. So this place called the Goodwins is flat, and it's fatal, and many tall ships uh, have run aground there, and their carcasses, their dead bodies of the ships are buried. And Salarino says that he has heard this news from a gossip. So the gossip that is circulating around uh, the Rialto, the marketplace of Venice. So if that news is to be believed, then Antonio has lost the ship. Salenio. I would she were as lying a gossip in that as ever napped ginger or made her neighbors believe she wept for the death of a third husband. So Salenio says that he hopes the news, this gossip, is false, and the woman uh, here, gossip is personified as a woman, and Salenio says that he hopes that this woman called gossip is lying, and gossip is supposed to nap ginger. Nap ginger means that she'll drink ginger ale, and so Salenio says that he hopes that the report is false, and he continues, but it is true without any slips of prolixity or crossing the plain highway of talk that the good Antonio, the honest Antonio, oh, that I had a title good enough to keep his name company. So Selenius says it is true without any slips of without wasting any words and talking plainly. The good Antonio and the honest Antonio, he wishes he had a title good enough to keep the name of Antonio company. Saladino says, "Come, the full stop. So tell me the end of the matter," he says. Saladino says, "Ha, what sayest thou? Why, the end is he hath lost the ship." So the final report is that Antonio has lost the ship. Salarino, I would it might prove the end of his losses. So Salarino hopes that the loss of one ship is the end of of Antonio's losses. Salenio, Let me say Amen betimes, lest the devil cause my prayer, for here he comes in the likeness of a Jew. Enter Shylock. So, Selenio hopes to solemnize the prayer for Salvino that Antonio's loss will end with this ship, and he says Amen, which is the end of every Christian prayer, the word that is spoken at the end of every Christian prayer. So then, Shylock, whom Selenio and Salarino think is similar to the devil, he enters Shylock. Shylock enters. How now, Shylock? What news among the merchants? So Selenio asks Shylock uh, what news he has heard among the merchants in the Rialto. Shylock, you knew none so well as you of my daughter's flight. So Shylock says that both Salarino and Selenio knew of Jessica's elopement with Lorenzo. Salarino, that's certain. So Salarino says that they really knew that Jessica was about to elope. I, for my part, knew the tailor that made the wings she flew withal. So Salarino says that he has inside news of Jessica's elopement. Selenio and Shylock, for his own part, knew the bird was fledged, and then it is the complexion of them all to leave the dam. So Selenio says that Shylock knew that Jessica had come of age. She was a grown up lady, and the bird had grown wings, so to speak. And Selenio says it is the nature of all grown up ladies to leave the mother. So it is a complexion of them all, of all the ladies, to leave the dam. Dam is the mother. Shylock, she is damned for it. So Salarino says that's certain if the devil may be her judge. So Salarino indirectly calls Shylock the devil because he's damning his own daughter. Shylock, my own flesh and blood to rebel. So Shylock is worried about the loss of his jewels and his wealth, which Jessica has taken plenty of. So he is angry and frustrated at this. So Selenio, out upon it, out carrion, rebel at it these years. So uh, Selenio calls Shylock carrion, is dead person, and Shylock says, I say my daughter is my flesh and blood. Salarino, there is more difference between thy flesh and hers than between jet and ivory, more between your bloods than there is between red wine and Rhenish. So Salarino says that there is a difference between Shylock and Jessica. The difference between Shylock and Jessica is similar to the difference between jet and ivory. Jet is something which is absolutely black and dark, and Shylock is like jet, and Jessica is like ivory. Ivory is the tusk of an elephant, which is white and valuable. And Salarino continues that there is more difference between Shylock and Jessica than there is between red wine, which is expensive and valuable, and Rhenish wine, which is uh, common and cheap. So Shylock is like Rhenish wine, and Jessica's blood is like red wine. But Salarino continues, but tell us, do you hear whether Antonio has had any loss at sea or no? Salarino comes to the point, he wants to know if Shylock has heard of the loss of Antonio's ship. Shylock, there I have another bad match, a bankrupt, a prodigal, who dare scarce show his head on the Rialto. He, a beggar that used to come so smug upon the mart. Let him look to his bond. He was wont to call me usurer. Let him look to his bond. He was wont to lend money for a Christian courtesy. Let him look to his bond. So Shylock says that Antonio is a bankrupt. He's a prodigal, that is a spendthrift who spent all his money, and now Antonio hardly dares to show his head in the marketplace because he has no money. And Shylock says that Antonio is a beggar who used to come so smugly, who used to come so complacently and with such great self-satisfaction into the marketplace. Now he dares scarce show his head, and Shylock says that he has the bond of Antonio. So Antonio had better be careful, and Antonio used to call Shylock a usurer, a money lender, and Shylock says Antonio had better look to his bond. Antonio used to lend money freely without being thrifty, without without keeping it for himself. So he was wont to lend money as a Christian courtesy. So generosity is one of the Christian values. So Shylock says, let him look to his bond. Salarino says, why? I'm sure if he forfeit, thou will not take his flesh. What's that good for? So Salarino asks that if Antonio is not unable to repay the bond, Shylock won't take his flesh. And he asks, what is human flesh good for? So Shylock says, to bait fish with all. So Shylock says he will go fishing with Antonio's flesh. He'll bait the fish, he'll place Antonio's flesh on a hook and bait the fish. It will feed, if it will feed nothing else, it will feed my revenge. So if Antonio's flesh will feed nothing else, it will feed the revenge that Shylock has for Antonio. He had disgraced me and hindered me 500,000, laughed at my losses, mocked at my gains, scorned my nation, thwarted my bargains, cooled my friends, hated mine enemies. And what's his reason? I am a Jew. So Antonio has humiliated Shylock a lot before. He has disgraced Shylock, and he has stopped Shylock from getting 500,000 ducats in the marketplace, and he has laughed at Shylock's losses. And if Shylock made any gains, then Antonius poo-poo him. They say, what is that good for? And he scorned the Jewish nation. He has hindered, he has thwarted the bargains of Shylock. Whenever Shylock was about to make a bargain, Antonio stepped in and placed some sort of obstacle from Shylock making a profit. He had cooled the friends of Shylock and set the enemies of Shylock against him. And why did Antonio do all this to Shylock? Shylock says he is a Jew, that is the reason. And he continues, hath not the Jew eyes, hath not the Jew hands, organs, dimensions, senses, affections, passions, fed with the same food, hurt with the same weapons, subject to the same diseases, healed by the same means, warmed and cooled by the same winter and summer as a Christian is. So Shylock says that he too is human, he too is a man. Like Antonio, he too is a man like a Christian. Jew also has the same hands, the same organs, the same dimensions, the same size, the same senses, affections, and passions. Jews are also fed with the same food, they hurt with the same weapons, subject to the same diseases, healed by the same means from diseases, warmed and cooled by the same winter and summer as Christians are. If you prick us with a needle, do we not bleed? If you tickle us with a feather, do we not laugh? If you poison us with some arsenic or hemlock, do we not die? And if you wrong us, shall we not revenge? So if the Christians do wrong to the Jews, shall we not revenge? If we are like you in the rest, we will resemble you in that. If Jews are similar to Christians in all other respects, then they will resemble Christians in taking revenge. If a Jew wrong a Christian, what is his humility? Revenge. If a Jew were to wrong a Christian, then what is the punishment? It is for the Christian to take revenge upon the Jew. If a Christian wrong a Jew, what should his sufferance be by Christian example? Why revenge? So, if a Christian were to wrong a Jew, what should the Jew do by the Christian example? Why he should take revenge, says Shylock. The villainy you teach me, I will execute, and it shall go hard, but I will better the instruction. So, the wrong that the Christians have taught the Jews will go hard, and Shylock says he'll execute his plan to take revenge, and he says he will better the instruction of the Christians, like Antonio. Enter a man from Antonio, serving man. Gentlemen, my master Antonio is at his house and desires to speak with you both. So the serving man tells Salarino and Salenio that Antonio wishes to speak with them. Salarino, we have been up and down to seek him. Salarino says they've been up and down Venice to look for Antonio. Enter Tubal. Salenio, here comes another of the tribe. A third cannot be matched unless the devil himself turn Jew. So Salenio says that all Jews are devils, and he calls Tubal devilish character. Tubal is the accountant or the friend of Shylock, and he belongs to the Jewish tribe. Salarino, Salenio, and the serving man exit. Shylock, how now, Tubal? What news from Genoa? Hast thou found my daughter? So Shylock had sent Tubal to look for Jessica, and Tubal has gone to Genoa, another city in Italy, and Shylock asks Tubal if he has found his daughter. Tubal, I often came where I did hear of her but cannot find her. So Tubal says that he had searched Genoa, he had come to places where they spoke of Jessica, but he could not find Jessica herself. So Shylock, why there. So Shylock consoles himself. A diamond gone cost me 2,000 ducats in Frankfurt. So a diamond which cost him 2,000 gold coins in the city of Frankfurt in Germany has been taken by Jessica. The curse never fell upon our nation till now. So uh, uh, Shylock says the curse of God has never fallen until that moment when Jessica has eloped with most of his wealth. I never felt it until now. 2,000 ducats in that and other precious jewels which Jessica has taken. I would my daughter were dead at my foot and the jewels in her ear. Would she were hearsed at my foot and the ducats in her coffin. So Shylock values the wealth that he has more than his daughter. He wishes that Jessica were dead at his foot and the jewels were either in her ear or in a coffin. No news of them. Why so? I know not what spent in the search. And so he says he spent a lot of money searching for Jessica. Why thou loss upon loss? The thief gone with so much and so much to find the thief, and no satisfaction, no revenge, no ill luck stirring but what lights on my shoulder, no sighs but of my breathing, no tears but of my shedding. So uh, Shylock complains to Tubal that the thief, that is his daughter Jessica, has gone with so much wealth and he has to spend so much more money to find Jessica, and there is no satisfaction, no ill luck stirring but what lands upon the shoulders of Shylock, no sighs, that is heavy uh, breath, heavy hot breath of suffering, except there's no sighs except of Shylock's breathing, no tears but of my shedding. So